think that the school construction authority, even within this area, has not examined all alternative
Well,
sites.
this is very constructive. This is precisely the sort of information that will help the school construction authority.
We looked at that site. I'm going to ask Tammy to please answer that.
We looked at that site, and we actually did environmental phase 1 and phase 2, and we did a test fit to see if a school could fit there. And as we progressed, the police department told us sort of to back off.
Did the set, excuse me.
Yeah, they didn't try.
If the owner of these particular 3 buildings has definitively said that he's not selling his properties to SCA, my question number 1 is, and somebody at this meeting actually emailed this to me while I was here, why are we still meeting? But more importantly, can SCA tell us that if the owner is not selling them the property, that this project is dead or not? I mean, that goes back to the first question that Mr. Plotzker asked, and I don't think that that's been answered. Because we're talking about alternate sites to give them an idea, but they're not going to decide tonight, this is a great site, let's leave here and go build somewhere else. They have to go back and they have to do a lot of things. Thank you.
Does the owner wish to say something about it?
Yes, I just want to make it.
So we hear you.
I just want to make it clear that my discussions with the brokers occurred approximately 2 months ago, when I told the broker that I'm not interested in selling to the school construction authority. So if this process is continuing, it seems that they're going on the path of eminent domain against my will, and that seems to be what the process is about. Because it was quite a clear message. I told the broker that no matter what price, I'm not really interested in selling.
Thank you. The gentleman next to Mr. Yeager, would you identify yourself, please?
Aaron Tesla, Young Israel of Midwood. Has the city ever used the eminent domain in a school setting?
The question is whether the SCA has used eminent domain to acquire a school property.
Yes, they have.
Where?
All over the city. You the shepherd?
That's my question.
Why don't you stand and speak loudly so everyone can hear you?
If the city does go through with eminent domain on this property, does the city council still have final say on whether the school ends up there?
Yes, what happens is, as I said, this is a 45-day process. If we proceed, this is a 45-day process. We issue environmental findings on the site, and then it would go to the city council and mayor, again, additional public hearings. And we would not, with any site, unless we got council and mayoral approval, we do not and cannot go forward with the site.
Hassan Chiptai?
We are not in the business of pushing people out of their houses. As I said, if an owner came to us, an adjacent owner, and said, you know what, I don't want to be, if we get approvals, I don't want to be next door to a school, are you interested in our house? Then we'd be interested. It's a small site, we'd be interested. But we are not going to any of the owners on the block. We're not doing that. We never do that. It's not our intention. It's an occupied house. That's their house. We're not looking to push anybody out or force them to sell. We would not even have any discussions with them.
Chaim Deutsch?
If I may add just one point, is that...
My turn.
Okay, I just wanted to add, okay.
I have a question. First of all, I've been hearing that you, according to SCA, that the owner is going to sell until you heard last night.
That was the first time that we were told.
I'd like to ask Mr. Bishop a question, because when my conversations that we understand is for 3 months, he hasn't heard anything. Did you officially hear about this hearing tonight from the SCA or from the community?
I first got a phone call from the Young Israel saying that they received a letter.
Did the SCA contact you? That's my question.
The SCA did send me a letter.
When?
It was probably about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
But again, I want to reiterate that my conversation with the brokers, their broker, who spoke to my broker, occurred at least 60 days ago, I would say, when I made it very clear that I was not willing to sell. And their brokers, I'm sure, would have informed them otherwise. And if they thought that I wanted to sell, we should have had discussions prior to this meeting.
You know, one of the things we have is what's called JC Studio. It's a studio on East 14th Street.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Okay, the people don't know that, so.
Sure.
They had a studio where they used to have film as The World Turns and The Cosby Show. Everything was great neighbors, everything was great. They went out of business, okay? Now they have these big time films where they're trying to squeeze a large object. It's like trying to squeeze a large object into a small container. They take up hundreds of parking spots at a time.
And, you know, I know Department of Education, it says no parking 7 to 12 where all the schools are. Where are the teachers going to go? Many teachers drive. Forgetting public transportation.
The question is,
I worked in
would there be
30
any
years
provision for
Department of Ed. Many
parking
teachers
for
drive.
Department of Education employees, the teachers?
No, the Department of Education capital budget is not spent on seats for children, not on parking for teachers.
So the parking would compete with the existing parking in the vicinity, is that a fair?
Yeah, but
Okay, okay, asked and answered. Sir, please stand and identify yourself.
My name is Sidney Katz. I live in the area. I'm here since 1969. I've seen this area go to its better days. It's perfect now. It's a wonderful neighborhood.
You have a question, Mr. Katz?
I don't have a question. I have a statement that it has to do
I
with the
haven't gotten to that
environment.
part of it.
Sir, it's an environmental, okay, I'll make it a question. How will they address the traffic on Ocean Avenue, the bus that runs down Avenue L and makes a left turn in front of the Young Israel? The senior citizens who attend the Young Israel will come out when there are school buses lined up. You will not have parking on the street sufficient for school busing, for parents who will drive their children on rainy
Mr. Katz,
days.
we see through you. You are really making a statement. You've made it. Thank you very much,
Well,
sir.
I'd like you to
let's move
consider
on.
it,
Mr.
sir.
Powell.
Very good.
It's true.
Yeah, you're right.
I think I'm going to be guilty of the same thing, but I just want to make a clarification here to the representatives who are here. What you're hearing is not that we don't want a school. The problem is with the location. I don't want you to feel like, okay, we tried to give you a school, you didn't want it. We need a school, but that location, I think what you're hearing here is not the perfect location.
Mr. Powell, I don't think we are all there yet. I think that it still needs, are there any other questions at this time that will achieve clarification of the proposal? Dan?
Quick question, what is the financial cost of this project, of this proposed school?
That'll be quantified after design, if it is, design is complete.
Ballpark figure?
Tens of millions of tax dollars.
10 or 100?
Do you want me to guess?
Yeah.
We haven't designed.
Comment on it.
But there is a number in your budget that
$100,000
shows
plus
47.83. So what is that number if it's not budgeted for this school?
It's an approximation,
Okay.
which will be detailed after design is detailed.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
million or 425?
47.83. That's the number in the budget.
Sir, please identify yourself. Wait, before we go on, we do have to have quiet in the room.
Usually when you open up a school in the neighborhood, taxes start going up. So first of all, I mean, I'm not excited about even seeing the school open up, but were it to open up, what is going to happen to the taxes of the people that live in the neighborhood?
I don't think anyone in the room is capable of answering your question.
Did I hear correctly that there's a line in the budget that said it cost of $47 million?
You did?
It can't be right. It must be at least half that price because that would be over $1,000 per square foot. And I don't think we're putting up buildings for that price. So.
The government does, Mr. Goldman.
They don't have money for teachers, but have money for buildings. Got it.
I don't want to be the contractor.
They can't park 3 blocks away. They have to park directly in front. And that's going to interfere with the students and with the seniors and the city buses, the 49 to 9, because there's no room for those trucks to park and to deliver what they have to deliver.
Double parking.
Well, double parking on Ocean Avenue, triple parking.
Yes, you may.
I would just like to point out that, as per your question, we had a similar situation where we built an addition PS 160 in Borough Park, right off 52nd and Fort Hamilton Parkway. Similar situation. We worked well in terms of the construction. Fort Hamilton Parkway is much narrower than Ocean Avenue. It's one lane in either direction.
You know, I've heard a number of comments about this construction phase, that there are a lot of concerns about the construction phase. Well, there are 3 vacant houses sitting there that are in very bad condition. So I'd like to know what's going to happen to those 3 vacant houses. Most likely, we have the gentleman, the owner here, he might be able to answer this, but most likely they're going to get knocked down and an apartment building is going up there. He's going to want to make money off his property, maybe he doesn't want to sell to them, but the construction is going to be a mess no matter what. So that should not be a consideration, in my opinion. Would you address that? What do you want to do with your property?
Yeah, I can't say for sure at this time. I see your point, but I can't say for sure at this time what our plans are.
Okay, folks, we haven't really taken a break. Well, the reason we're in a public hearing now is to see if this site is suitable for a school. We cannot just come back and then say, we're going to build 2 more stories, or we're going to take over the building next door. We're the city of New York. I understand, I have empathy for your concern. Nobody wants a school built in their neighborhood or their backyard. They all want it built in their neighborhood to serve their children, but not in their backyard.
Ocean Avenue, at 8 o'clock and at 3 o'clock, or whatever time it is, literally coming to a stop. Because you're going to have 7, 8, 9 school buses all at the same time, flashing lights, children getting on the buses, and literally closing down Ocean Avenue. It's not a pie in the sky statement, it's a literal
Thank you for your
statement.
point, sir.
My point is, how are you going to deal with this issue?
They're not going to answer your question.
Well,
You've made your point.
we need answers.
Let's move on, please.
Why aren't we getting
Archie
answers?
Nussbaum.
I wanted to take the opportunity to speak about this project because I think that to me, the perplexing thing about the project is that, as a city council member, I actually invest a lot in my public schools. And in fact, I fund every single public school in my district. I reach out every year and make sure that they have the needs that they need. I attend the education hearings diligently. I'm there from the beginning until the end to hear the advocates and the folks who have opinions because I think it's important. And I firmly believe that public schools are the great equalizer for anyone who comes into the city. But what's bizarre and what I really can't understand and something that I'm trying to figure out over here is that usually the public schools, the requests come from a particular neighborhood where they come in and they say, we demand that we need a public school here. We would like to have a public school in this particular community. We'd like to have a public school in this block. And it just seems to me, from the information at least that I've heard from my staff as the meeting has progressed, and I apologize that I'm late, but I actually held a meeting of my own in my office, is that there's not a lot of support for this particular school in this particular area. There doesn't seem to be a need for this particular block. And from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just heard this on the way over via email, that the owner doesn't even want to sell the property. Am I right about that? So the Department of Education, the SEA, is going to come into a neighborhood that hasn't asked for a school, and doesn't want the school in this particular location, and are going to force the owner through eminent domain to sell the property. It just doesn't make any sense. And so I think there are more questions than answers. I think there are other questions as to why there are several other sites that were considered, including one just a few blocks away, that many folks, and I know we've actually discussed this myself and the district manager, found more suitable, but doesn't seem to be like it's seriously considered by the school construction authority. And I think that this is the kind of thing when you're going to be investing in something permanent, when the city is investing tens of millions of dollars, and I think the cost comes out to like $50 million.
Only 47.
Only 47. Only, what's that?
47.83.
47.83. Well, I've only been in government for 3 years, but I can assure you that by the time it's done, it won't be $47.83 million. And so I think before that kind of investment comes in, and before the community signs on the dotted line, I think we're owed answers to these questions that we don't have. And so, from my perspective, I, as someone who represents neighborhoods immediately attached to where this public school will be sited, cannot support this project until the questions are answered and we have a complete accounting of why they're not considering other locations, why they haven't considered the other properties the district manager and I have reviewed that seem to be available, why they're trying to force someone who doesn't want to sell a property to sell a property. I mean, honestly, it seems a little thug-like to come in and say, hey, you know, you don't want to sell your property in a neighborhood where people don't want your school, but we're going to force you to sell your property. When in the rest of the city, people are desperate to get rid of property. So my concern is that I just think there are too many unanswered questions, and I would not support the project until all these questions are answered. And so
What do you really think?
I want to thank